Welcome to a new episode of the Front End Happy Hour podcast. I don't know if it's New Year's resolutions or what, but I'm hearing a lot of people taking different approaches on how to reduce their social media consumption. People are setting timers, deleting apps, or just completely ditching their phones. In this episode, we will talk about social media habits and how we each approach them. This is not necessarily a software engineering topic, but continually it shows up around our careers. Let's dive into introductions. Shirley, you want to start it off?
Hello, Shirley Wu. Recently graduated from art school, software engineer, data visualization designer. Yeah. Hello.
So,
Augustus. Yeah, I guess I have some news today to share. I was one of the folks who was impacted by the layoffs at Twitch. So yeah, that's been kind of a bummer. So I'm kind of exploring options right now, but I am still me.
that's awesome. Yes. And we all know that you're going to land somewhere great, Augustus. So yeah, if you are hiring, I know a great engineer that is currently looking for a new role. So you can definitely reach out to Augustus.
Jem Young, engineering manager at Netflix, and you should hire Augustus. He's great. I will provide a full character reference for him anytime.
I mean, we're doing it right now, live on a podcast, right? Like that's
right.
That's perfect. And I'm Ryan Burgess, the host of Front End Happy Hour. All right. Before we start with the topic, I also wanted to bring up that we've been asked many times to do video for our episodes. So in 2024, we have now officially started recording video and publishing on YouTube. So check out our YouTube channel and subscribe. You know, that seems to be the cool thing to do is subscribe to different things on YouTube. So you can find us there at Front End HH. All right. I figured as a good way to start with this episode around social media is I want to know what you all are using for platforms. Like, what's your go-to ones? What are ones that you just like, you know, maybe guilty pleasures, all that. I'm very curious.
I guess before we dig too deep into that, what do we consider social media? Because I feel like is Reddit considered social media? I feel like people typically are like Facebook, Twitter/X or whatever it's called now. What do we consider social media?
That's a good question, Augustus. I mean, I consider Reddit social media. I mean, you're connecting with people, you're having discussions. I mean, I guess is a forum social media? Yeah, I think it was the early social media. So I think pretty much anything that kind of fits in that category, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, whatever. I think a bulk of those. I'm probably missing some too,
Okay.
some more niche ones, but I think that covers them.
I will say I primarily have been on Reddit a decent amount for my news and whatever communities I decided to join. I have ways to organize them, but I have more recently have had an unhealthy obsession with TikTok. I was a hater. I'm just going to be honest. I was such a hater. I was like, nah, TikTok is not for me. It's I'll never use it. And then I just, I was like, I'm going to try it. And it really, really got trained on what I like. And yeah, I've been using it a lot.
It gets trained too quickly. I think that's part of the problem too. It's just you go down a little bit of a rabbit hole and you're like, wait, I've been doing this for 2 hours. What just happened?
Yeah.
It's funny because with TikTok, I think I was on it for a month during the pandemic, and people are always like, wait, how'd you go away or get away from it? And it's funny because they got trained really quickly, but what I was interested in was such a niche that they ran out of content for me. The niche was arts and crafts, but very specifically, I think I was really into resin stuff at the time, and I think polymer clay stuff, and also I wanted media art stuff. And then after a month, they just kind of stopped having new stuff for me.
I feel like there's probably some updates now by that point, Shirley.
Probably.
Yeah.
But I also uninstalled TikTok, and I'm okay with it. I'm okay with the and also by now I feel like a lot of people also upload their TikToks to Instagram and also YouTube. I try really hard to stay away from YouTube Shorts. I know that I am desperately procrastinating if I am going on YouTube Shorts. That's how I know. But I think that to answer your original question, Ryan, about what social media, I feel like for the longest time for me, it was Twix. I was about to say Twitter and Twix at the same time.
Twitch.
Twix.
But I mean, I feel like that's how I met a lot of you. That's how I met a lot of my friends. Like in my post college, and I feel like for a good number of years, it was. I like to now describe it as the corner I was in was a really fun house party with like the people that I really enjoyed being with, and trying out like other like the Mastodon and like Blue Sky feels like now it feels like I have to be at like 5 different house parties at the same time, but like also they're all not really like bumping. And so I'm just
Yes.
confused. And so recently I've just been on Instagram. And Instagram also really knows me because I'm like, I'm like gonna use my Instagram like I'm gonna be a serious artist and follow all these artists. And Instagram is like, no, we know what you really are. And we're gonna show you capybara reels, Shiba Inus, and food in New York. So that's that. These days, it's Instagram.
Jem, how about yourself?
I actually try to use social media as little as possible, but it's like inescapable in a way, which is dumb because I know you can just quit it. But kind of like Shirley was saying, it has been beneficial for like career, meeting friends, making connections. So there's that aspect. But anyways, we can get more into my feelings on social media. What I use primarily, if I had to pick one, maybe Twitter, but like I almost never post. I don't know why I have followers. I never post anything. I mostly retweet. Yeah, I have a lot of followers for some reason. Not a humble brag. I have 24,000 followers. I don't post. I don't post anything.
But I think the retweeting, I think, is also like I've been thinking about this a lot, and maybe we can touch on it later. Is like there's just as much value in curation as there is in original content, I think. But
So Twitter, I guess, for scrolling, but I really don't scroll that long, and I don't follow that many people on purpose, just so I don't get sucked in anything. LinkedIn, I guess, but again, I don't post much. But everybody tells me like LinkedIn is like where it's at now, and like Twitter X is not where to be. Like I've heard that from multiple people, like people with big followings. It's like LinkedIn has much more engagement, and it's like better quality engagement. Again, I don't post. And probably my long-standing one, I don't know if this counts as social media, Hacker News. Like I read a fair amount of Hacker News. Not social media, just a forum. But it's like just good random nerd stuff that has been consistently high. Like the moderation there is fantastic. So those are probably my top 3. Don't have Instagram, much to the chagrin of Ryan, who always gets in my case. I've never been on TikTok. Yeah, I guess I'm the old man yelling at clouds here, but still, I still don't like social media. It's like too much.
You know, Jem, I give you a hard time on it, but at the same time, I'm like, don't, right? Like it's like one of those things. Like you're likely not missing it in your life. Obviously, you're not because you're like, yeah, I'm not on there. And I think it can have those negative side effects where you do get sucked in, and it's like, wait, I'm just wasting time. And I don't think you necessarily feel great about doing that either. Like that's what everyone says, like, oh yeah, I just spent so much time on TikTok or Instagram or whatever. So maybe you're smart by not doing it or not even just like diving in. For me, I think like if you asked me this, I don't know, maybe a year ago or something, probably Twitter would have been my like top one that I spent the most time. Like, you know, if I was grabbing my phone, that's what I would, you know, load up. I don't find that I'm going on there as much. Same with you, Shirley. It's like, you know, there's just, I liked what you said. There's so many parties, but like not everybody's there, so it's not that exciting. Like we didn't even mention threads. Like there's, you know, Facebook decided, right? Like there's like,
I forgot about that.
There's like Blue Sky, there's Twitter, there's Mastodon, there's Threads. I'm probably missing some other niche one that, you know, there's probably a few others, but those are the main ones that come to mind. They're all kind of that like text-based social media. I think, you know, Twitter was amazing. I still have fond memories of it. It has definitely gone downhill. I think also that people left, right? Like, even if it wasn't going downhill, they all decided, I'm a Blue Sky fan, I'm a Mastodon fan, and everyone just kind of diverged, and that kind of sucks because you're missing that community. So definitely not as much there. Instagram has always been one that I like, just kind of kill time with. I do like watching a lot of the reels on there, or even just different photography content. That's pretty much what I see when I'm on there. Graffiti, tattoos, and photography. Like that, if you looked at my feed, that's what it would be. No surprise there. And then I have been finding, since I have not been working as much, I'm not doing this so much at, like, even during the day, but YouTube videos. Like, I feel like I'm like, oh, I want to learn how to do this. So I'm like diving into YouTube videos more. I haven't got sucked into the shorts, Shirley. That, like, I see them there. I definitely do. I've been posting more to YouTube as well. Like, I'm doing more with like drone videos, and I feel like YouTube looks the best for it. I'll post them to TikTok and Instagram, but I feel like YouTube is where it's at. So maybe that's my new one that's starting to suck me in. I'm not sure, but haven't got down the shorts road yet.
I just realized there's also like Twitch and other, like,
Yes.
those, because I was on there for a year or two. Your YouTube reminded me of that.
Yeah, Shirley, I remember you diving on that one. That was like when we first met. Like, I totally remember that too. Yeah, Twitch is definitely a good example. Augustus is very familiar with Twitch.
Great
Yeah.
company.
Too soon, Ryan. Too soon.
What? No. Twitch is great company. What's actually really interesting is, like, depending on the platform, like Twitch is like live streaming, and then like I realize there's like certain social media platforms for very specific, what they focus on. Like, I feel like, I think designers have a special gated invited only place. I forgot what it's called. It's like invite only for designers. But there's like tons of small social media apps like that are like very focused on one thing, and they do it very, very well. So it's just kind of fascinating.
That actually reminds me, I guess you can also consider dating apps social media, because I've also heard of people finding friends on dating apps, and like, and what Augustus just said reminded me of, I've also heard of like highly exclusive dating apps where you have to like earn a certain amount of money and have like a certain amount of education. Yeah, so but I was actually also going to add something I forgot to mention earlier, is to your point, Ryan, about like with YouTube, like the drone videos, and you're really enjoying, like, yeah, I think to both Ryan and Augustus' point, like each platform feels like there's something that works really well on there, and like YouTube being like longer form content. Or I know that the reason why I started being fascinated with Instagram is because of the reels and their short form content and how people tell stories within the minute or two. I'm not a big fan of shorts, only mostly because I feel like they're training me to have even less attention span than I already do. Uh, but I do really admire like people that can really fit a whole story within the 60 seconds. And I've been trying. I'm shit at it. But that, and also one of the reasons why I stopped posting on Twitter as much is because I realized that there's a lot of things I wanted to share and talk about that just like wouldn't fit into 280 characters, right? And then when you like start to thread them, is that where threads got their name? Like when you start like
Maybe.
I don't know what the terms are anymore, but like when Twitter you will like do the reply chain, even those feel really awkward. And surprisingly, I'm not a fan of Substack, but I have been more and more of a fan of like newsletters as like long form like information sharing and updates. And I'm now subscribed to like a few that's like just daily or weekly some amount of content about tech or art or media or some amount. And that's why I've been thinking a lot about like, not everything we share have to be original content. some of these are just like aggregating really useful resources from across the internet. And I think about this a lot also as someone that has to find clients somehow. And for the longest time, Twitter was my big source of how people found me. And now that that's gone, I've been trying to figure out how to replace that, and arriving at a conclusion that maybe I just don't bother replacing the social media.
Maybe, we've talked a little bit about this too, and Shirley, you're talking about that, but like what you're using it for too. Like Jem mentioned, like he's mainly using Twitter just to digest or like, read content, not necessarily posting new content. I mentioned like, yeah, like I'm leveraging YouTube and TikTok and Instagram for like video content that I'm just like playing around with and doing. But yeah, like what are you all finding what are you using social media for? Is it just consumption, or is it like I do want to share things as well?
Yeah, I guess that kind of depends on what you're hoping to get out of the platform. Actually, I think a few others we kind of missed was like Stack Overflow and GitHub. Like, do we consider those like social media? And I personally used to do a lot of Stack Overflow and GitHub, and the purpose of that was, I'm just going to be honest, like I wanted to build reputation on that platform, and then I felt it would help my career, and also it was a good way to learn too. So I feel like it really does depend on the platform. Like for Reddit, I just like comment whatever, hopefully I did. I'm actually like, somebody might find my Reddit account and be like, oh my god, Augustus like posting the most random stuff, but I'm an open book. But then for like TikTok, I don't post anything. I'm literally a consumer. I am like eyes to content.
That's fair. Augustus, I mean, I love what you said too, is like, you're like, oh, I wanted to do that to help my career and learn. I like the learning part too. As you had done that for a while, I know you're not doing it as much. I mean, you probably gotten busy, and that comes at the cost of something like that. Did you feel as though you did learn from it, and did it help your career?
It's hard to say, because I don't think I've ever had a recruiter say like, wow, I saw your Stack Overflow and it just blew my mind. Like, so it's hard to say. I'm sure I would like to think it got someone to raise an eyebrow and say, okay, this person might know something. But actually, I'm so sorry. I have to go on a quick rant, because Stack Overflow reputation means absolutely nothing. One of my highest rated, I swear, I have 10,000 reputation on Stack Overflow, but my most upvoted answer is literally like how to amend a commit. Like how do you write a message, or how do you no it was how do you quit out of amending a commit. And there was already an accepted answer. I found another way to do it, and everyone was like, oh my god, this way is so much better. Oh, I love you, you're so amazing. Oh, mwah, and it's like, does that make me an excellent engineer? Like, absolutely not. So sorry, that was
I mean, I think what it means is that you answered a question, people see value in it, right? I mean, Git is one that I will admit I Google often, like not, the typical like, Git add and commit and everything, but there's certain things that you're like, wait, how do I do that one thing that I only do, every month or two? So there are those things where it's just easier to look it up than trying to figure it out. And that's probably what you did with that. And so that's helpful. So I don't think it makes you necessarily a strong engineer, but you're providing value.
For sure. Well, I guess my takeaway is, if you're a recruiter or hiring manager, like, that reputation isn't really supposed to. Yeah. There should be more signals you should be looking at. Sorry. Okay. Rant over.
Fair enough, Augustus. Shirley, enjoy yourselves.
For me, it's kind of sharing the content that I make accidentally. Like I don't consider myself a content creator, but like I do have content somehow. Like I was on a podcast the other week talking about hiring because someone invited me to be on a podcast, or I've been on panels because someone invited me to be on a panel. But I'm not like Ryan who like deliberately makes good content, but I do have content, so I like to share it out when I can. So that's kind of what I use social media for, and just connecting to other people. Following my friends is also helpful, seeing what they've been up to. I think Twitter has been helpful for that, like watching the progression of people I've known for many years progress from software engineer to engineering manager. Like a few people are going through that journey the same as I am, and we can share some of that is helpful as well. But yeah, I hate to say it's like all career stuff. I don't do social media for fun. Like I don't have a Reddit account, or I don't play on Discord or anything like that. It's kind of it's all related to the tech somehow. Hence my feelings on social media. Maybe I'm too connected to it and it feels like work, like not fun. So
that's fair though. You've had this like purpose for it. Like to me, it sounds very purposeful. First, like, yeah, some of us are like, yeah, I just sit there and scroll on TikTok for hours because who knows why. But like, I like what yours is, maybe just more purposeful and it's for work. And you're like, that's what I do. So, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I find that really interesting also that like Twitter, for example, I think started out as like just a place for you to randomly post things. But the way that I remember that my first tech meetup I went to in 2012 or 2013, and everybody was like, do you have a Twitter handle? And I was like, well, and then that became a way of like, instead of, I mean, I guess I don't know if we ever exchanged business cards at tech meetups, but I don't know, did we? But like instead of exchanging business cards, that was like Twitter handles, and and I think because of that, I think Twitter, like Jem is saying, Twitter has come to feel more like work, because at some point I feel like it transitioned. I think the point at which it transitioned for me was when I decided to go off on my own and take on client work. And I think at that point something switched, where I feel like before it was just a place I was like for fun sharing side projects I was doing at like, on while when I was at a full-time job, and it was just like things I found that was fun, or things that I found was helpful for my work, or just like talking to people I met at meetups, but like on Twitter. And then at some point I feel like over the years, I do feel like maybe this also came hand in hand with, also not a humble brag, as to Jem's point of like, at some point my Twitter audience did grow a lot. And I feel like, I think coupled with that, it made me feel like I needed to be more like careful with what I posted. And it felt like it needed to be more curated, and it needed to like, I put out stuff about what I'm involved in, but then after a while it felt kind of like people were reaching out to me expecting me to post. Like, for example, if they invited me to do an interview or something, it kind of started feeling like I was expected to then post about it, or like they never would like say it out loud or anything, but like I would feel they would be like, oh, so I put it up, and like here's I tweeted about it, or I posted it on LinkedIn, and then it would feel like I was kind of expected to, yeah, like share it also or write about it. And I feel like all of that started to suck out the enjoyment of it for me. And I feel like it was like maybe 2-3 years ago where I just like got really burnt out from it. And I think in the 2 years that I've been in school, I've barely posted. My Twitter is like dead. There's like, I don't think the algorithm likes me. I paid for, what's that called? Like the Twitter Blue or whatever. I've paid for it for a few months to see if anything would happen. Nothing has happened. And so as actually part of like my trying to think about what I would like to concentrate my time on going forward, like into the new year, that's when I was like, I think that like Twitter still has a special place in my heart, but I don't think it's like somewhere that I'm going to be spending that much time on anymore. And I do feel like in a similar way, like Instagram feels kind of similar to me, of like, we started out posting on Instagram just for fun, like with like wacky filters about things like coffee that we took a photo of that day or something. And at some point, like artists and designers are like, no, we're going to make this place goddamn beautiful, and everything is going to look like it's so highly produced, and you need to have like a expensive camera. I don't know. And I think that also makes me feel really scared about posting to like your Instagram wall. Is it called like it needs to be beautiful? Oh, your profile needs to be beautifully curated and professional. And I feel like all of that has like sucked the joy out of all of that for me. So I guess what I'm trying to say is nowadays, sometimes I'll post on stories because that feels fun still. But mostly I just scroll. And that's how I find good restaurants in New York. Instead of Google Maps or Yelp, I find it through Instagram now.
I like so much of what you said there, Shirley. Like, I think that there's these, like, for me, what I liked, even what you're saying about the early days of something like Instagram, I think Twitter fits that for me too, is you get that like bit of quick feedback from people, and like you're able to get inspired from others, and it didn't feel like a chore. There was that enjoyment side of it where it's like you're like, yeah, cool, I can follow people that do amazing work that I find great and I want to see that work. Now it's changed so much too because of the whole algorithm, right? The algorithm shows you what they think you'll like. And maybe yesterday I was searching how to fix a toilet, and now it's like cool, that's all I've done that. That's not my new hobby. But the algorithm thinks that I'm doing that for a while, and it just keeps showing me that shit. And so that feels weird too. It's where it's like, I know, I just want to see, Shirley had an update of some new project that she did. I want to see that. I want that to show up in my feed because I follow her and really want to see that, not just some random person that you think I will like. And so I think that's made it a lot difficult for that. And then I want to come back to something that you said too that really sparked for me, was you're kind of saying that you felt the social norm essentially for like if you did a podcast or interview, video, whatever it is, that you feel inclined, you're almost have to share that. Nobody said that you have to, by the
Yeah.
way, but
Yeah.
it's this, it's like this internal pressure that I think a lot of that comes up. There's no rule book for this stuff. And the thing is like you'll have friends who post like, I'm just going to pick on Instagram. They'll post like 10 photos like all at once. And people would be like, no, you shouldn't do that. You should save them like, once every couple hours or whatever. And it's like, whose rules this? Like, I'm going to use the platform for what I want to do it for. And I think that there is these weird social things that came into play, but there's not really a set rule book for how to use these platforms.
Closest to rulebook, I guess, is how the algorithms are implemented, and so people are like, to beat the algorithm, you do XYZ, I guess.
And that's exhausting though. Like that's like tiring to be like, oh, if I post at this time or I, get people to comment or like, and it's just like that to me is where it's very exhausting. It's like, no, I just want some like to show off what I've done, get some like feedback, people say, oh, you've tried this or whatever, like connect on that level. I think that's cool. But yeah, I don't really care if 1,000 people like my photo or, engage with it. It's like, that's not really what it's about. Or I don't want to like spend time curating a perfect profile. Like that to me is just like, that's not really, I don't have time for that.
Yeah, I was just going to say like all those points you made about like, I kind of remember YouTube when it first started. And do you remember like, it was just like very basic, like people would just come look at a camera and they'd just be talking. There'd be like no like animations or maybe there'd be like a very cheesy intro in the beginning, but they'd just be talking, and it's like, if you like, I suggest everyone to go back, like look for a video posted like that, like Kev Jumba's first videos or whatever. It's like very nostalgic and just very chill. But nowadays there's a lot of this, I would almost say like it feels templatized, like oh, like make sure you like and subscribe at the end of this video, and like they do a little jingle jangle, and they like space it out very very cleverly and stuff. It's at some point it gets kind of exhausting, and this like if you want to participate, you feel like you almost have to adhere to that. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Like social media has become its own economy. Really? So, and I think that's a struggle we're all talking about here, which is I just want to post something, but there's like rules and all these things because you're compared against people whose job it is to post on social media. And wow, that really great looking selfie of them wasn't a great selfie because they have a whole camera crew that like follows them around and takes pictures for them because that's their job, is to do that. So like we're comparing ourselves against that, or YouTube, who entire movies and films are made on, and TV shows are made on YouTube, and we're trying to compare against that because like, but that's their job, and that's I think where social media has kind of gone awry a little bit, where it used to be fun and enjoyable, but now it's like this economy of attention where, you know, like I just want to say something, but people are like, yeah, but it's not polished enough. And if you don't have enough followers, then it becomes a point of why post it at all? Because no one's going to see it. Hence, you're trying to get to that point where you have an audience, but to get there takes polish. And yeah, it's one of those, to what end? Like, again, this is why I only use social media generally for tech stuff or career stuff, because I'm like, at least there's something there I can see. It's harder to quantify that value, but at least I can justify that time being put in a little bit. But yeah, just for fun. And like you said, Shirley, trying to make like the curated Instagram profile. Like, I just, for what, you know, like to what end?
So I have maybe a little bit of mixed feelings. I actually shouldn't say that because I do agree heavily on like a lot of what you just said, Jem. I think one thing that I've actually liked or maybe appreciated on some of the aspects of the quality is that you start to maybe want to get better at that. Not everyone, right? Like someone's just like, I just want to jump on and say something. But I also like that some of these things, it's like you're learning how to produce like a podcast. Let's just start there, is like, I remember our first episode, it was like we had no idea what we were doing. The quality's gotten better. We've learned a lot. And to me, that journey has been so powerful. Like, I love that. It's like taught me so many things that I wouldn't have really needed to learn, or I don't know, really gone down that. It was just more like, I want this to continue to get better. And so I think there's some of that quality is a good thing, and can drive some of that innovation or just like making improvements to your own content. But I also see the like negative to that too, where it's like now everybody feels like they need to be at that level, and then it might deter people from doing that or discourage them, get frustrated, and that sucks. Like that does take the fun out of it. I'm curious with, we've talked a lot about of our like us being on social media. Do you all feel like you've spent too much time on social media? Jem, I'm assuming you're good, but I'd be curious on each of your thoughts.
Like I said, I don't spend a lot of time on it. My challenge I have with LinkedIn, Twitter, all these other inbound ways of being in contact with human being. I've thought a lot about this in the past year. And like, I realize my introversion is like, I am a written introvert. Like I think very carefully about what I write, and talking, I'm fine. I'll talk to you all day. But if you ask me to write you something, I'll think very critically about that. And like, I think I'm more introverted that way. So for me, sometimes it's like being in the middle of a web of just all these different ways of communicating with me. So there's like text messages, Slack, email, LinkedIn messages, Twitter messages. I'm sure there's more. But as a manager, especially, like I'm dealing with so many inbound communications all the time. And then you add on these other messages and ways of getting a hold of me. Like, it's just like, sometimes it's really overwhelming. And I just have to be like, I'm going to respond to my text messages in 3 days. I'm going to let them queue up. And then when I'm in the mood, I just knock them all out at once. And I just gotten a little bit slower about responding because I'm like, it's not critical. But for me, I think that's the challenge, is like I'm like almost too connected to people, which is a good and a bad thing. And I always try to respond to everybody, which puts like a weird pressure on me. I don't need to, but I do. But it also like, it's more work in the long run. So if it were up to me, I would like drop it all. But to me, the benefits slightly outweigh the cons on all these platforms.
Jem, you want to know what one of the best things is of not being a manager right now? Not dealing with Slack messages. Like, honestly, I think actually Jem and I went out for dinner, and we just kind of went on this like rabbit hole of Slack and like how people are communicating on it. And that, to me, I do not miss at all right now. It's like, it was just, there's too much of it at like, and it's there's no break on it either, right? Like, you'll get messages, early morning, late in the evening, weekends, whatever. It's just kind of like, it's not even people are necessarily expecting you to respond. Similar to Shirley, it's like there's no rules. It's just like that own internal feeling like, I need to respond. So I'm actually happy to hear Jem say, that's not critical. I'll get back to you in 2 or 3 days. Like, it's not, I don't have to immediately respond. To me, that's amazing. Like, you're setting a great boundary, and like, I think everyone needs to do that. Nothing is critical. I mean, I'm sure, Jem, you get some messages that are like, Jem, I'd kind of like a response now, but you will probably respond to that
Yeah.
if needed. But if it's just like, hey, like, what are you up to this weekend? And you're like, it's Monday, I'll respond on like Wednesday or Thursday and say, hey, here's my plans. Like, there's certain types of messages that you'll respond to quicker, I'm sure.
I also really, really like Jem's term of written introvert, because I really, really, really relate to that. Of like, I think maybe it's because like once it's written and sent out, it feels so permanent. I know like we have like for a lot of messaging apps we now have like undo, but for me, I think maybe this is also why I prefer DMs to actual email. But what you've described, I forgot even that part about social media, of like all of the like plethora of like why did each of these platforms build DMs? I mean, I get why, but it just like it really is that same feeling of feeling overwhelmed, and it actually makes me not want to reply to anything because I'm so overwhelmed. And actually something that you said reminded me that I think that in combination with like kind of Ryan's original question, like prompt of a lot of people, like original of of people this year being like, I'm done with social media. I've been wondering, I've been trying to think of like, what is it about this past year? I have some clues, at least from a Twitter perspective. Um, but I'm trying to figure out like what it is about this past year that has been triggering people to be like, I want to be less online. Um, and then for me personally, it has been, I don't know if it's because of the time in my life where I feel like I'm in a very transitional phase. I don't know if it's like my age where I'm suddenly like all of my friends are starting to have babies or have had babies. And and that means that I don't have the kind of like, we used to be like, as friends, we used to be each other's priorities, and understandably, like, I'm not their priority anymore, which like I totally respect that. But it has made me think a lot more about like the different levels of um like what I would want to prioritize for communication, like similar to how we think about like our family and then our closest friends and then like our like a little bit more extended friends and then acquaintances. A lot of these social media platforms feel like I'm um feel like communication with acquaintances or even like potentially pure strangers. And I realized that for a really long time, especially on Twitter, I was giving more time to communication with strangers, very friendly, very, it's sometimes very helpful strangers, because like I might tweet a question about a tech and they're like responding back, or they're responding back about something I posted and they're like, oh, that's really good work or something like that. And I again feel the obligation to be like, thank you so much. But they're relative strangers. Where Whereas like, because I'm spending so much time on that, I'm much less responsible to my friends and my family that should be my priority. And I think that that's a lot of what's shifted in the past year for me, of like, I've stopped posting as much on all of these platforms, and I've stopped being as responsive on them too, because if I think about like my, I don't know, like a water tank of written introversion, and like if that's a limit, then maybe I want to save more of that for like for my friends and for my family. And so that's a lot of what that made me think of. Yeah.
I don't know if this is true of me, but I think I'm the complete opposite. I don't think when I post truthfully that much. Like when I post on Reddit, make a mistake, people downvote. Huh, that one wasn't very popular. I think I'll just delete that comment, and no one will ever know. It'll be a mystery forever. Um, that's that's me. But I actually I'll say I did quit Instagram, like in terms of like posting and Twitter, Twitter just because I don't know what to post. Like I'm just really bad at it. But actually for Instagram, the reason I quit it is like, I love like keeping in touch with my friends and what's happening in their lives, but it might just be me, but it kind of ruins, I feel like it ruins it when I like meet them up. I'm like, "Oh, what's up?"
Mm.
They're like, "Oh, yeah, I saw you did that." I'm like, "Oh, yeah. Okay, you know it. All right, that's cool." And like it's just like it takes I don't know, like it sounds weird. I feel like I'm
Takes the
just trying to
mystery out.
like I'm it's like I don't know, I'm not trying to make my life more adventurous by like like not keeping in touch with them, but I just feel like meeting up with them is like a lot more fun when you don't know what's going on in their lives,
Mhm.
and then sometimes it's like a little shocking, like, "Oh, I had a kid." Like, "Oh, you had a kid?" Like, "You didn't see all the Instagram?" Like, "Nope, did not know that." But it's like more exciting. So I don't know, like I just don't feel like I need to be always plugged into others
Mhm.
because I'm gonna make time to see them eventually, and that's when we'll reconnect. And it's not like it's like I'm just trying to focus on myself.
Well said, Augustus. I like that.
Yeah.
Thank you, golly geez.
Before we dive into picks, I would love to even hear each of your thoughts on, like, what do you think the future of social media is? Like, when you actually think about social media, yes, I mentioned forums count and everything, and forums have been around for a long time, but we're looking at social media has been around like 10, 15 years. Like, and we're already having problems with it, and it's not gonna be any different. Or like my prediction is like, I mean, it's just going to get worse. But like, what are your predictions kind of thinking even a year out? Like, what's the future of some of the platforms we're looking at? Do we have yet another text-based one, like another Twitter? I'm not sure. I hope not.
I guess I'll and hopefully I'll try to answer really quickly about what I've been hearing a lot of people say, which I think goes back to one of the things we were saying about how the algorithm has made it so stressful to like if our whole point of social media was to try and keep people in our lives updated, then the algorithm kind of really fucked with that. And I've heard a few people say that like blogs are coming back, which I find really interesting, and similarly like newsletters. And personally, I've really, really enjoyed writing my like longer form um, newsletters and then getting like, I can't always respond to them, but like getting the emails back that like of people responding like quality responses to what I've sent out. And I've really been enjoying that. And also actually on a similar vein, I don't think Twitter is as dead in like, I feel like a lot of, when I was in Europe, a lot of people still use it. And when I was in Japan, it's like nothing has happened. Nothing has changed. Like I think it feels kind of like a very American and very tech thing. The whole thing that happened, I think a lot of because of all that happened with the 2020 election and a lot of what happened, wait, no, 2016, the elections, and I think what happened with Musk, I think it feels like a lot of other parts of the world is still like Twitter is still their main thing.
I mean, Shirley, I think just to chime in on the Twitter thing too, is like people are still using it heavily. Like a lot of the people in the tech community that were like, I'm done, I'm jumping to Mastodon, Blue Sky, whatever other one was hot that week, they're back, right? Like they're back on there. I do think it's changed. Like it's not the same Twitter that we really all kind of maybe romanticize about, where it was like, yeah, we met all these amazing people, we connected. It's not that anymore. And I think in some ways it was like everybody jumping ship on like Elon Musk taking over. Yes, that was a mess. Absolutely. And, I'm not going to say that wasn't, but I think a lot of the problem was too, is now everyone's on a different one. Like you might have chose that Blue Sky or Threads or whatever. And so it's kind of dispersed. People are still out there posting things, but it's just not on that same platform. Or some have migrated back, but it hasn't felt the same for a while.
I'll say like some of my experience being at Twitch and then other things. Like one thing that I've definitely seen, even from like Twitch's perspective, is like We actually categorize different platforms as like long form content or short form content. Twitch is traditionally seen as long form content because a live stream is long, and we've definitely seen, like, especially with like younger generations, like shorter form content is what people prefer. And Twitch was like, we eventually launched stories. Check it out. We launched that at TwitchCon, but we were kind of late to the game, and it's definitely like very apparent that like as time goes on, people, I don't want to say they're getting more picky about what they're watching, but they're not gonna. It's like you'd have to be very deliberate in what you're showing to get someone to watch an entire thing. So I feel, I don't know how far that's going to go, but I feel like over time that's going to continue. And then the other thing that I definitely noticed is this authenticity of like the content that you're seeing. Like how will that get improved? There's like social media apps that try to like prioritize this. Like there's one called Be Real, where it's literally like it will like notify you, hey, take a picture right now. Like just quickly take a picture. It's like it gives you like a 1 to 2 minute window to take the picture, or you can't take a picture that day. And the whole goal of it is be real. I don't know how real people are in this 1 to 2 minute window. I tried it. I took a picture of the floor, and my one friend who saw it was like, dude, why'd you take that? I'm like, I didn't have enough time. I didn't know what to do. So, it's like, I don't know how successful it will be, but I feel like I can see that headed in that direction, especially with like AI and what is achievable these days. It's like very crazy of what you can fake and stuff.
I want to be Augustus's Be Real friend. If I don't have a Be Real, but I want to see Augustus's floor.
I'll be honest. After that one, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. This is too much pressure.
My quick take is, I think in 2024 we're going to hit like content overload. We talk about AI, like I guess you just mentioned AI and using that to create content. Ryan, I think you did a demo of like you created a part of an episode just using AI to recreate your voice and things like that. We'll see a lot more of that. I think one of my last picks was about AI written content becoming more and more believable because you can just generate entire fake profiles, fake people. So I think we're going to hit a limit on like fake content, and that push for authenticity will rise, because when everybody can just produce high quality content, then like what is good content at that point? So that's my prediction. I think it'll take a few years to play out, but we'll see definitely more of that in the coming future.
Yeah, I love that you said that, Jem. I think that we're already seeing snippets of that in some of the content that's out there. I'll pick on TikTok for that. I think that there's more people trying to almost get away from that. Like Instagram is absolutely like the high quality, like got to make sure that it's perfect. That's what it feels like. TikTok seems to be like going the other direction, or at least the content creators. Like you see people like taking a video of themselves talking in their car to give you more of that illusion, like, hey, I'm on the go. I'm not, sitting in a studio trying to build this piece of content. So I think people are starting to do that more. I think another thing that I love Augustus brought up was like short form and long form content. I think with advertisers, my guess is like I'm starting to see things like TikTok, which was short form, encouraging more long form. Like I think they've upped to, I can't remember what was it 10 minutes for the video or even an hour, something ridiculous. But it's also so that now, like it's same as what YouTube did, is you can now shove ads in the middle of the content, right? Like you're in the middle of a show. It's like the same as we grew up on cable TV. It's like, all right, I'm in the middle of my show, and then I got the 10 minutes in and I got a commercial break. And I feel like that's like going to happen more and more. These platforms need to make money. They're leaning on ads. That's a big revenue generator. So I think that we'll see more of those things. Like, yes, we had short form, but like, wait, is that working for ads? Maybe, but if it's not, how do we get more ads? Cool. All right. Well, that seems like a good place to, leave our episode and dive into picks of things that we've found interesting, want to share with you all. Augustus, you want to start us off?
Sure. Thank you. I would love to go. Yeah, my first pick, I might have picked it before, but I wanted to pick it again. It's the Have I Been Pwned panelists.com website. This is a great website to know if you've been if one of your emails or personal information was exposed in a data breach. And there was a really, really big one. There was a massive one that happened recently. Just make sure to keep your identity safe and like just be informed of yourself. Implement 2FA. I can't stress that enough. Yeah, I care about it because my name's pretty unique. So, but yeah, everyone should. And then my second pick is actually from the podcast called Call Her Daddy. There's this episode. Yeah, I wasn't sure. My fiance, she was like, oh yeah, there's this great episode on Call Her Daddy. I was like, what is this about? But anyways, they have an episode called about navigating friendships, and I just thought it was such a great episode talking about like what it's like when you're an adult and how do you prioritize friendships and how do you even go about setting those boundaries or expectations. Like when you become an adult, I'm realizing there's a lot of stuff happening and it's hard to make time for everyone and everything. And spoiler, you can't make time for everything, so you really need to like set those expectations, and sometimes you have to do it with your friends. So check that out.
Right on. Shirley, what do you have for us?
Yeah, I love Augustus's picks. I feel like like the first one is so helpful, and then the second one is I feel like so relevant to our conversation about social media and where we spend our time and how we prioritize our time. Mine's not that serious. Last month, Netflix put out Pokemon Concierge. I don't know if people have seen it. It is so. I hear Augustus typing.
What is this?
It is stop motion. I think it's like 4 episodes. It is adorable. Like it is beautiful. It hits all of the nostalgia, but also hits if you love beautifully crafted things. I'm sorry, I'm not a salesperson and I'm really bad at pitches. But if you like Pokemon, it's wow, I'm really bad at pitches. If you like Pokemon, please go see it. And then the second pick I have is in a very similar vein. I don't know if people have seen Miyazaki's latest film, his quote unquote last film, his like 5th last film that he came out of retirement for, which is called Boy and the Heron. I would love to hear your thoughts about it if you've seen it or if you haven't seen it. I think it's worth watching for the beautiful cinematography, which is a weird word to say for an animated film, but it was beautiful, and I don't think I can say much more without spoiling the plot. And my last pick is a Chinese artist that I came across actually a few years ago and got to see an exhibition of his last year. And his name is Cai Guoqiang. There we go, Cai Guoqiang. I'll put the link in. And he is really cool in that his medium is gunpowder and fire. And so his medium is I think one of the most publicly known work that he's been commissioned to do is the fireworks during the 2008 Beijing Olympics. That was all these fireworks of these big footsteps arriving at the stadium. But my favorite work from him is a work called Skyladder, where he, I see Jem nodding, it's been like a 20-year project that he was finally able to realize, I think in 2016 for his grandma, I think for his grandma's 100th birthday or 105th birthday or something like that, where he built this like ladder and put all the, I guess, fireworks along it and then lit it up and let it drift up to the sky. Absolutely beautiful. And there's a documentary about it on Netflix. This was a very Netflix heavy set of picks.
Jem, what do you have for us?
Oh, +1 Skyladder. It's amazing. It's like stunning. Worth a watch for sure. I have 3 picks today, and for some reason they're all about AI. I don't know. Maybe I've been on a kick. The first one is a blog from Simon. Should I forget what he's saying? Simon Wilson, the person who last year coined the term hallucinations from AI. Just one of those things. But it's a good rundown of stuff, or the blog title is called "Stuff We Figured Out About AI in 2023." And for me, who's not super plugged into the space, it's a really good overview of kind of just the advances in AI that have been happening. It's one of those spaces that every month something changes, so it's pretty hard to keep up. So this is a pretty good just overview of all the things that have happened and kind of where we're headed in AI. My second pick is also about AI, but this one's about the New York Times lawsuit against OpenAI and Microsoft. So I guess for those who don't know, New York Times is suing OpenAI and Microsoft for essentially stealing their content and being able to reproduce it without attribution and license. So the link I put in the show notes is like actually the brief they filed with the court, which normally you're like, why am I going to read a court brief? That's really dry. It's a really good rundown of like how AI works, how LLMs work in a really digestible way. Because remember, they're writing for a judge who does not know technology. So like it's really, really approachable. And then New York Times goes into why this is copyright theft, why modern AI models are stealing from them in their view. And it's a really good intellectual debate about AI and like all this stuff we take for granted and how they actually train their models and things like that. So one, the implications of this lawsuit will be like, it's really going to change the industry one way or the other. Two, it's a really approachable read. New York Times, of course, being writers are really good at writing. So even if you just read the first couple of pages, you're probably going to learn a lot about the space. And my third pick is more on the side of things. It's about for those who know me or listen to our front end happy hour regulars, I'm a big fan of Formula One. Generally all things racing. I'll probably watch it if it's on. So there's a Formula E team. So Formula E is the, I guess if you want to call it Formula One, but all electric. So not as fast and hasn't really caught on as well, but still doing interesting. Anyways, I digress. There's a Formula E team that hired a virtual AI influencer, which is also on the rise too, which we didn't even touch on it in this episode of social media. But they've now fired, if you can fire a virtual AI influencer, because they hired this woman to be a virtual influencer in a sport that like does not have good gender representation. Like it's atrocious. So they got all this backlash because they're like, we need more women in the sport and in the field in general. And you, instead of hiring one, you just hired a fake one instead. Like it's just ridiculous. So they deserve all the flack they got for that. But that's more in the, come on. And those are my picks.
Jeez. Yeah, good call on that one. Being like almost an anti-pick at that point, Jem. Jeez. All right, I have 2 picks. There's one, actually, they're both related for this topic. The one is a podcast episode from the podcast Flusterclux. It's really about like, it's more a parenting type podcast, but they do this episode and it's not very long. It's on the mastering the skill of disappointing people. And to me, this is very relevant for us in the social media world, where Jem said it, like, I'm getting messages all the time. I can't, keep up or respond. Like, it's setting boundaries, right? Like, it's like, you can't respond to everything. You can't feel like you have to. And so some of it is just like recognizing and building your own boundaries. But they share some really good insights in that. And I think it was like 15 minutes. Like, it's not a long listen. So it's worth checking that one out. And then, since we're talking social media, I was like, wait, I can, tell you to subscribe to my YouTube channel to get my drone videos. So I have a link in the show notes. If you actually do want to see some of those videos, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. It feels so weird to say, but I just did it. I feel like I need to be like, I've seen YouTubers be like, mash that like button and like subscribe. Like, I'm learning all the lingo now. I've just been slow on like watching a lot of YouTube, but lately I have been. So there you go. Welcome to social media episode on Front End Happy Hour. Well, well, thank you all for listening to our episode. You can subscribe to us on our YouTube channel at Front End HH. You can follow us on Twitter at Front End HH, frontendhappyhour.com. Really, whatever you like to subscribe to podcasts on. Any last words?
No, there's no keyword.
Unfollow.
Nice.
Twix.
Twix.
I love it.